Life is a garden and we are all gardeners. We have a fabulous guest today. We are going to dig deep. We are going to hear juicy tidbits, plant seeds, and just dig in. So I hope that you'll join us. Come on in and listen to what we got to say. There are many kinds of gardens, as there are many kinds of gardeners in the world. To me, the word garden means growth, new beginnings, greens, transformation. The word landscape to me means adding anything and making it better to like a given feature. So today we're going to talk to my friend Peter. He's a spiritual friend, and we both share the study of Kabbalah. We have many things in common because we're both mentors, we're both spiritual, and we both have lots of certainty in our story. We're both livers of a very creative lives, and we are both landscapers of our own lives. So I asked Peter today if he was okay if I called this segment of my story Scorched Earth. And Peter said he was okay with it. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how Peter alchemized his situation and what I think to me looks like turned scorched earth into a certain kind of Eden for himself. So I'm going to let Peter talk about his story and his garden, and then we're going to go back and I'm going to ask him some questions. But we're going to start with a quick story on how he got where he is today. Take it away, Peter.
Okay. So since the topic is scorched earth, I will kind of start with the scorched earth. I was a very vibrant and active teenager of 19 years old back in August of 1987, so many years ago. And at the time, I was between freshman and sophomore year in college. And I was a DJ for the college radio station. And I was DJing like weddings and parties. I was working out with it was a community college with the baseball team. I had my own business called ATS, a total service, that in 2 months that summer, we grossed about $30,000. It was incredible. Of course, I was getting ready to go back to school. It was August. So many things going on. And one fateful night in August of 1987, I was really, really tired from working from like 6 a.m. to like 8 p.m. Then we went out to the city to a dance club. And then we got back to the suburbs of Chicago, and it was about 12:30 a.m. And there was this man-made lake in the suburb called South Barrington. And I was so tired. For some reason, I'd never swam in that lake before, but there was a dock in the middle of the lake. And I just wanted to like go fall asleep under the stars on that dock. And so I was with my friend Ted and a couple of girls, and I went running down the hill to the lake, skinny dipping, stripping my clothes off, ran down the hill, dove into the lake. And next thing I know, I'm underwater and I can't get out of the water. I can't move. I can't breathe because I'm underwater. And just wondering what the heck is going on. And basically, in hindsight, my friend Ted said they got down there like maybe a minute after me and saw me floating face down, but thought I was kind of joking, doing dead man's float, And then after another 30 seconds or a minute, they're like, something doesn't seem right. So then Ted got in the water and pulled me out. But he said I was probably underwater for like a good 3 minutes. And now me underwater that whole time, you ask yourself when you're facing death, I didn't know I was facing death at that moment. All I knew is I had to hold my breath. And that was the only conversation to be had. Was like one side of me was like, Peter, you got to hold your breath. But the other voice is like, I need a breath of air. And the other voice is like, no, you got to hold your breath. And the other side's like, you know what? I think I could take a quick breath and get a little air before water comes in. And the other side of the head is like, no, if you take one quick breath, you're drinking water, not air. So it was just this debate in my head. And I think your body kind of shuts down too. Because in no universe could I imagine holding my breath for 3 minutes right now.
Right.
And so anyway, so then I felt Ted pull me up by the hips, but my face didn't come out of water and he dropped me back in. But he realized as he picked me up and dropped me that I was limp and he pulled me right back out. And I was just like, don't put me back in. I can't breathe. And then he pulled me to the dock and I was like, I think I'm paralyzed. And then the girls ran up and called. This was before cell phones, believe it or not. So they ran up to the house and called, 911. And I was kind of in and out of it, but I remember sirens and I remember a female officer poking me with her badge to see where I could feel or not. And then I went into shock, and the next 2 weeks are
Nothing.
a fuzzy memory. So anyway, that was a pretty long story just to say I went from, complete active, athletic, running a business, DJing, all this stuff to like laying in a bed completely paralyzed at that point from the neck down.
Wow.
So that's pretty scorched earth,
Yeah,
right?
I'd consider that scorched earth. Wow. So obviously those were 2 weeks of hell. Or do you not even remember?
Well, I was in and out. Like I have hallucinations, I remember, but that's it. I don't remember talking to people, but I do remember a couple of very vivid hallucinations, which is interesting. But basically, I think it was after like maybe a week, they did an operation. They took a bone chip from my hip and wired it to my vertebrae. I broke my vertebrae between the 5th and 6th vertebrae. And you can tell what vertebrae that is. If you feel the back of your neck and you feel a bone sticking up,
Yeah, I know that one.
that's your 7th.
Oh, so
So
above
I broke
those.
it up 2 above that. And so at the time, because of swelling, when I was laying in bed, I couldn't move my arms or anything. But once the swelling went down, we realized that I had movement in my left arm pretty good, in my right arm a little bit. And basically, like, I spent the next 9 months in rehab centers and the hospital and rehab centers.
So did you dive in, or like, how did that break?
Yeah, I dove in.
You dove in.
And, the weird thing is like there had been torrential downpours for a couple days. So the water might have been higher, but I dove off of dock into a lake. So the water was shallow and I probably just hit the bottom and just snapped my neck all the way forward.
And you don't remember doing that though?
But I don't remember the pain. Although people said when I got to the ER, I was like saying
Screaming.
how much pain I was in.
You don't remember
But
that?
I don't remember the pain or anything.
Wow. Kind of like having a baby. You just do it, and then when it's done, you don't remember any of it. At the time, you're
Interesting.
like, yeah.
I would have no idea about
I know.
that.
I know you wouldn't.
But God bless.
I mean,
the
you're a
women
miracle,
who-
buddy, but not that kind of miracle.
Yeah.
So when I say that I believe you have totally alchemized your life and went from, obviously, after a year in the hospital.
9 months.
So what was the mindset after those 9 months?
Well, I think an integral part of the story is after about a month, I also had a halo brace on, which is like this metal ring around your head and they screw it into your temples. You can probably still see the scars there.
Kind
if you
of,
look
yeah.
close. And then in the back of your head, and it's attached to like a hard plastic vest. So you can't move your neck at all.
Wow.
And I was on a striker bed, which rocks you back and forth to ideally keep you from getting bed sores. But anyway, night after night of that, and like in the beginning, there was like hundreds of people coming to visit me and stuff. But then school started, so it dwindled down. and to just like a couple people a day here and there. But to be honest, like I kind of didn't want people around when you're like that. But anyway, night after night, I had lots of time to contemplate. And on this one given night, 3 or 4 weeks in, I said, okay, Peter, like I sat myself down, even though I'm just laying in a bed. And I said, we're going to have a conversation. So I think I'm lucky that I got these two voices in my head.
Completely.
Which, now that we've studied Kabbalah, I know what those two voices are, but I wouldn't realize that for many years later. And, the practical, pragmatic voice in my head was like, oh, this sucks. Like, is my life over? What's up? But the other voice said, okay, listen, Peter, here's how it's going to be. You are going to make yourself a promise right here tonight. You're going to promise yourself to always look forward. You're going to promise you're not going to look back with regret that you did this stupid thing, diving into a lake. Luckily, I wasn't on drugs or alcohol. It was just, I was sleep deprived and it was a very bad judgment. But you're not going to look back and continue saying, what if? With regret. You're not going to look back and be angry. And you're not going to look back and be depressed. You're always going to look forward. Like, I want to know where I'm going to be next week. You're going to be curious of where you're going to be next month. You're going to be curious where you're going to be next year. You're going to be curious where you're going to be in 5 years. And like, I've just lived by that mantra ever since, just always look forward.
So you didn't slip back and forth, going back and forth. You made that decision. That's what I mean by him alchemizing his life. It was like a magic spell kind of, where you decided this way or that way. So at that moment, you're going to plant healthy and conscious seeds.
Yeah.
So that's really why I wanted to talk to Peter today, because he is the ultimate inner gardener. He took some seeds that may have been expired or a little crusty and turned them into something amazing. And I do believe life is like a garden and we are all gardeners. So with that being said, I'm going to ask Peter some gardening questions.
Excellent.
I first want to say how amazing it is that you had to redesign, redig, replant everything in your garden. I mean, seriously, scorched earth. Had to learn how to be again.
Yeah, I was a whole new person. I had to learn. I was right-handed. I had to learn to be left-handed. And even at that, I couldn't use my fingers. So I had to learn everything. Eating.
I mean, that's just so amazing and such a beautiful story. And that is what I think life is all about. Life gets handed to you and it's about which way you take it. And
I will give the caveat too, that there were a lot of bad days.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want people to think like I had that conversation and everything was sunny, but grounding myself in that conversation got me through those days, like days where everything seemed horrible and awful and having trouble getting through the day. But
hopeless.
I would never let that wrestle my spirit down. But yeah, there's lots of bad days. But when you plant the seeds, as you so eloquently analogized, when the weeds start popping up, you're able to pull them out pretty quick.
Absolutely. The consciousness, it's all about that consciousness. But during that time, you really didn't have that consciousness. You obviously did, but you weren't trained with that consciousness. So there's an inner spirit, and that's what I'm talking about. The inner gardener, the inner landscape. Like there's something inside of you that says, no, we can go one way or the other, and we're going this way. This is why he's a hero. So I want to know, how long did it take? But you kind of just answered that, to decide that you wanted to live this creative, amazing life, and you did not want to live the life of a victim that's paralyzed and can't do anything for himself. So from the beginning of the accident till when did you feel like, that's it, I am not? Was that the weeks?
Let's put it this way. When I was in the hospital and rehab centers for that first 9 months, I could barely move or anything. And I had a couple setbacks with really bad sores on my body that really set me back. But when I got out, I had finished freshman year in community college, and my accident happened in August. I got out in May. I immediately took one summer class at community college, and then I took on a full-time schedule in the fall for my sophomore year. And then I transferred to a 4-year school for my junior and senior year and technically finished college in 4 years. But that being said, it was after the summer, like the sophomore year coming back was just about discovery and survival, figuring out who I was and how I work, how I interact with people. A lot of my old friends didn't know how to be around me anymore.
Totally.
As I kind of didn't know how to be around some of them anymore, especially the ones that our relationships were so physical, like sports. And even the person that was my business partner in ATS, we kind of drifted apart, even though we were spending like 24 hours together before the accident. So the first year was a lot of discovery, figuring things out, but I was still taking a full course load. I was still completely active extracurricularly, like on the newspaper and the radio station. But then that summer, when I knew I was going to be going down to University of Illinois, I checked myself into a rehab center again because I had more physicality. Because all the doctors said I should use a power chair because I had very limited strength in my arms, but I insisted on using a manual chair because I wanted to strengthen my arms. And even when I'm backtracking a little bit, but when I was in the first 9 months of rehab, like after about 6 months, I got to sit in a chair for the first time. And it was a power chair. And I'm like, I do not like this.
Really?
And I'm like, can I please just try sitting in a manual chair? They're like, you might need a sip and puff chair. Like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, just let me feel it. And so I got in it, and like this arm couldn't even move. My left arm could just move a little bit, and it had these little projections on the wheels. And I was able to just push like an inch with this arm, but it was like I couldn't push with this arm. So I just like went in a little circle. And they're like, see, you can't do it. I'm like, what? I just pushed like 2 inches. Didn't you see that? Like to me, I was like, yeah.
Right.
2 inches today, 4 inches tomorrow. And
amazing.
And so like that year at community college, pushing around the campus took me forever. But it was, to me, one of the best choices I made because I gained a lot of strength. So anyways, so then with the more strength, I went back into rehab and learned how to do more things. And then as a paraplegic, quadriplegic, when you're injured in life like that, there's people that kind of dedicate their lives to rehab after that, you know, like where you do rehab 3 hours a day.
Every day.
You know, there's the dream that you'll walk again. And so they do the exercise, the bike with there's like electrodes they put on your legs to pedal a bike to keep your legs in shape and stuff. And I tried those that summer, but I was like, you know what? You know, it would be great if one day they find a cure for spinal cord injury and I would walk again, but I'm not going to live my life for a cure. I'm going to live my life to live my life.
Awesome.
And I'm not negating rehab or its merits. It's definitely needed in the beginning, but I decided like, I want to spend every waking moment following my dreams. And to me, like even just pushing myself around was a great workout. So I would say that, and then I spent 2 years at University of Illinois, and that made 3 winters in a wheelchair in Chicago.
3 winters without a wheelchair is enough to make it.
And so trying to push around in snow and ice, I was like, and so I told everyone, and I'd always wanted to move to California, to be honest, since I was a little kid. And I said, yeah, I'm going to move to Los Angeles where it's warm and flat all year. after I graduated. And I think no one believed I would do it. But after I
Did you
graduated,
come by yourself?
I actually, one of my friends from high school that also went to University of Illinois, he wanted to move out west. So we caravanned. So he drove his car, I drove my van, and we were roommates for the first like year in California.
Amazing.
And I had to, like, before the internet, I had to find, like, I can't go a morning or night without help in and out of my chair. So this was before the internet. I had to place ads in California papers to find caregivers, interview them over the phone before I moved out there.
Was your mom freaking out that you were coming here?
She was,
Yeah.
but she was fully supportive.
That's awesome.
She was fully supportive. And I should also give her props because she was one of the strongest women I ever knew. It's a whole story, but even though I was adopted at birth, so we weren't like blood, I did learn a lot about strength from her.
That's awesome.
And stubbornness.
But
that Chicago stubbornness.
Yeah. Not to be confused with Chicago pizza.
Yes. But and yeah, like, when I came out here once again, it was like I just want to live life and go after my dreams. And
I have the goosebumps. I love this story because it's so real. I feel like, and Peter and I both know this because we're both students of this, there's dark. And if there's dark, there will be light.
Yep.
So I feel like that was a really dark time. And now you're just filled with light. And I feel like that is what a scorched garden, scorched earth does. It's like there's been a fire that rages through a garden or whatever and takes the whole garden down, and people are like, can't grow anything there. But slowly but surely you start, caring for the land, tilling and fertilizing. And before you know it, you have this gorgeous green Eden. Voila. So I do love that story. I want to ask you about, obviously you were born with certain superpowers that you've always had. Did those superpowers change a lot, or have you always had the same superpowers and tweak them according to being in a chair and out of a chair?
I think I kind of realized my superpowers between my junior and senior year in high school. I was a very shy kid growing up, but I knew I was very talented at many things, sports, woodworking, business. Like, I started a paper out when I was 8 and I turned it into like this empire of, like, I took over like 4 routes, and hired kids under me to deliver papers and stuff. So I always was athletic, entrepreneurial. I was good at everything I tried. I'm not trying to be egotistical, but
let it rip.
Like my dad taught me woodworking and how to work on cars. I had an old 1975 Plymouth Valiant and the starter kept going out, but it was fun when it went out because I would time myself, like go over to Napa, get a new starter, come back, install it, 35 minutes, new record, that kind of thing. So I always had I think before I knew who Michael Jordan was, I knew that there existed another level you could reach. And then Michael Jordan came around and really showed the world what it meant to take things to another level. And I was like, I know what he's talking about.
It's awesome.
I know that someone can present any, oh yeah, we have a little bug on the lens. You might need to blow him off.
Wow. Did you see that?
Yeah, I just saw him.
No, did you? How'd you see that? You saw it on there?
He's been circling the lens, but he just crossed the lens.
Yeah.
So with Michael Jordan, I was like, I think I kind of know what he's talking about this other level. And, so throughout my life, I've always known that you hand me anything and I will excel at it. And I think it was probably several years after being in Los Angeles that I started embracing that on a life tone, where I started feeling, okay, I was put in this situation because I need to inspire people. Okay, so let's excel at that.
Wow. Wow. Crazy. So you took something that was horrific and turned it into an opportunity. Amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like a whole nother level of stuff, just to be able to do that without, years of beating yourself up too. Awesome. So I know you are an artist. Tell the world what kind of artist you are right now.
Well, I started my career in development, working for production companies, developing scripts. And the more scripts I read that were awful, and the more writers I worked with that were good, but couldn't quite capture the story I wanted them to write, I decided to start writing screenplays. So I was producing and writing screenplays, a lot of straight to DVD stuff back in the late 90s and early aughts when that was still a thing. And I produced a whole bunch of theater and music videos. But then I had a major setback in 2009. I was producing music videos back to back to back to back, 18-hour days, all nighters. And I got a tailbone wound where your tailbone starts poking through the skin because you're sitting too much. And in hindsight, I found out that's what killed Christopher Reeve, who's a very famous quadriplegic.
The tailbone?
So he got a tailbone wound from sitting too much, and his tailbone got infected. And the infection went into the vertebrae above the tailbone, and he died of pneumonia from that bone infection. So I was in New York for a week producing 2 videos, and I slept maybe 20 hours in 2 weeks.
Oh, hell no.
And my tailbone was sticking out. I came back.
Could you feel that?
I can't feel it like you would, but
you knew.
For me, pain manifests with like sweat. Although when it's 100 degrees out, my body doesn't sweat.
Oh,
because
really?
the spinal cord controls your natural thermostat. So in 100-degree weather, my body just heats up until I get cold air or like water on my body, which is like sweat. But interestingly enough, my body's warning system for me for pain I can't feel is sweat. And even that, there's different sweats. If it's my bowels or bladder, it's a certain kind of sweat. But if it's like a pain from sitting on something or my shoe, it's a different kind of sweat. Human body is so interesting.
I know.
So, but I realized I was always clammy from pain. The day I got back, they're like, we're taking you into surgery to remove the tailbone. And so they did that. And then they did a bone scan and thanked the universe that the infection hadn't set in above the tailbone. So, but by removing the tailbone, it's like taking an ice cream scoop of flesh out of your butt. And the only way to heal it is to not sit on your butt. And I was very dedicated to healing it 150% so that it wouldn't be this wound ghost chasing me my whole life. And they said it would take 3 to 6 months. Well, after 6 months, it wasn't even close to being healed. Long story longer, it healed after 16 months. So I basically spent 16 months laying on my sides in bed until this healed all the way. I would, after about 9 months, I would sit up for a couple hours a day to eat and shower. But yeah, it was basically 16 months in bed.
Wow.
And so afterwards, like I lost all my film projects and my music video contracts, and I had to reinvent myself. So I kept writing. And in 2016, I had an opportunity to apply for a publishing company that only hires people that paint with their teeth and their feet, called the MFPA, the Mouth and Feet Painting Artists.
Wow.
And luckily I got in. They only take about 4 people worldwide a year. And I got in with my cartoony, unique, absurd, humorous paintings.
Which we'll share with you.
And they've commissioned me to do 2 children's books, one that I'm finishing right now. And so, yeah, so now I kind of live the life fully of an artist. I write and I paint.
It's so amazing. And I do love that because my whole story too is about a creative life. And when I say creative life, it just means like you're not going to live the life that's 9 to 5, sitting at the desk, getting the paycheck. So you create your own way of doing it, and you have totally created your own life. Okay, how has your inner landscaping changed? The way you treat yourself, the way you take care of yourself, as opposed to how you did. Obviously, when you were 19, you were a kid anyway,
Yeah.
but tell me how that thinking has changed for you, how the inner landscaping has changed.
It's changed so much, Alicia. Good question. You know, when I was 19 and first injured, doctors would tell you, don't worry, quadriplegics live to be into their 50s and 60s. You've got a long life ahead of you.
Ugh,
And now I'm 55 and I'm
and going nowhere but up.
36. I'm 36 years post injury. And those are voices that I can't get out of my head. Like, I think often about those voices of like, quads live until their 50s. But I try to use those voices as motivation.
Mm-hmm.
I've not been able to get them out of my head, but I try to use them as motivation. But it's something I'm working hard on that I haven't achieved yet. But there's so much that I want to do still. And so I really need to craft every day into a day of accomplishment. And it's not easy to accomplish megatons every day, but I do need to like make forward progress every day. And there's desires I've had for decades that I've now learned is your soul's yearning. If you have a desire that you can't let go of, there's a reason for that. It's because your soul wants it so bad. And there's still things in my life that my soul desires a lot that I really want to accomplish in this lifetime. So this might be a circular answer, but the older I get now, I, in my 20s and 30s, I went out with friends drinking all the time, like a lot of people do. After I smoked from age 21, I quit the night before my surgery. The doctor's like, you'll heal faster and better if you don't smoke. I'm like, done. And of course, laying in bed for 16 months, you don't want to smoke. But
Yeah,
luckily, even after I was up and about,
never went back.
yeah, I would even like at a party or a bar be like, hey, let me have a drag. And I'd take a drag like, how did I ever like these?
Ugh.
So weird.
I hate it. I'm so glad you don't.
Yeah. And so like even now in my older age, even alcohol doesn't speak to me anymore. I've got a really strong vitamin regimen. I maybe don't eat quite as healthy as I should, but I've seen so many quadriplegics that have died in their 50s. And not to be graphic, but the demise is usually your bowels and bladder. Like I suffer from constant bladder infections, as most quadriplegics do, like usually about 4 a year.
Well,
I'm actually on antibiotics as we speak from a bad bladder infection last weekend. But thank the universe, it was my first one in 8 months,
right on.
which was a record for my whole life. So I think that's kind of proof that
Good living.
I'm trying to take my longevity more seriously. And I want to get more years into my life so I could do more things. But there's also like a line of one of my favorite songs called Out of Sight by Spiritualized, this English rock group from the aughts. And one of the lines is like, I would rather add more life to my years than years to my life. So as much as like I do want to like keep living, I want, if I'm gone in 6 months, I better make these next 6 months
Right.
huge. So I think now that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to be more healthy with my body. And I'm trying to be more cognizant to try to accomplish my soul's yearnings and to fill my life and my legacy with as much as I can before my physical time is up.
Amazing. Truly amazing. And I feel like that is what it takes to be a good gardener, because no matter what the weather, no matter what the situation, you got to get out there. You got to check your plants. You got to make sure your fertilizer's on. You got to water even on a bad day. You just got to take care. So obviously your inner garden is definitely loved on and cared for by you. And I feel like that is such an important lesson in life. Like nobody's going to be a better gardener of your garden than you. So I love that. Okay. So I want to ask the last question, and that is obviously you're still planting new seeds on a regular basis. I want you to tell me what your practices are, because I know you're a spiritual being. What are your practices in the morning? Like if you're talking to the creator or the universe or whatever, what's that entail for you?
So for me, as you know, I study the ancient wisdom of Kabbalah, which is a wisdom and technology and not a religion. My whole life, I was born Lutheran, but I kind of became very disoriented, or not disorientated, very disappointed or
Right.
whatever with
Disenchanted.
with organized religion after I was about 13 years old. But I've always been a spiritual person my whole life. I always felt like we're all connected. Science has told us we're made from the same things as stars. So we're connected to the universe. We're connected with each other. There's some kind of energy, some kind of like guiding force energy. And I never knew what it was. And so I started reading the Kabbalah and learning Kabbalah. Ironically, as soon as I read my first book, the month after my 16 months in bed. So obviously I did a lot of contemplating.
Right.
And it was like I read Wheels of the Soul by Rav Philip Berg. And it was a page turner for me. I'm like, oh my God, that's how I feel about life. Oh my God, that's how I feel about the universe. Oh my gosh. And so like I never turned back from that. Like I felt like I finally found like what my soul has been speaking to me for most of my life. So that being said, to directly answer your question about mornings, I'm probably, not as routine as a hardcore Kabbalist or anything like that. I wouldn't even call myself a Kabbalist. Obviously, that's for really elevated souls, but I do love the Ana Bekoa, a Kabbalistic prayer based on the 42 names or 42 letters of God. And I definitely say that every morning. And
I just want to say that that is a prayer that says, thank you for waking up and putting your feet on the floor and being part of this planet and coming back after leaving in the night and coming back in the morning.
yeah, and so like, and I always like pray for my cat Muffin first.
Is that your go-to guy?
Yeah, she's 16 and a half years old and she's incredible, but she has been suffering from like distended bowels, and like her peristalsis doesn't work in her intestines, so she's backed up a lot. But trying to give her lots of laxatives, and she's been pooping for the last year since it was diagnosed. And
that's how a miracle.
I tell her like, you poop, you live. But every day I pray that I'm more of that she just lives in comfort and happiness for as long as she's on this physical plane.
For all of us.
Yeah.
Throw us all in there.
But then after Muffin, then I do the world, that I wish for comfort, happiness, and peace. And even though there's times when I think about current events, especially, we won't get into it, but like politics and such, it's hard to keep that mantra. I really try it. That's the biggest challenge for me. But anyway, I will put that out to the world in the morning, including the people that in this country and other countries that I disagree with ideologically.
Still praying for them.
You got to put it out there to them.
Right.
Even though I might have thoughts during the day that are counter to that. And then thirdly, I will do my checklist for myself. Like I've obviously learned through Kabbalah that you're not being selfish by praying for yourself, because if you make a small improvement during the day, or you become a better person, the world's a better place.
Totally.
And like I always love the story about the sesame seed. Like they say that once the scales of good and evil hit 50-50, all it takes is one sesame seed on the good side
To take the whole
to
group.
take the whole thing.
It's awesome.
And I'm like, I want to be that sesame
Me too.
seed.
Me too.
You know, so it's kind of like, let me figure out how to share today. Let me be that sesame seed, no matter how small the act. And, you know, I pray that, you know, the universe, the creator, the light, God, whatever anyone wants to call it, that my vessel opens up to receive more of the light, energy, love that the universe has to give me. And, you know, that it, you know, at my ripe old age, I've had good relationships, but I still keep myself open because now I've learned that your soul needs relationship
Right.
to grow.
Yes.
And I've deprived my soul of that. And it does sear in my mind every day that that's one of the main reasons why my soul is here. You know, you know, whatever people believe in or not, I believe in afterlife and past lives. And I believe that my soul came here during this lifetime I obviously had to go through a hardship, but I think the main reason was I needed to be in a committed relationship to really grow my soul and to learn ultimate sharing. And I've deprived my soul of that ultimately. So I still thrive no matter how much time I have left on this earth to somehow
To grow that.
grow in that regard. Like my soul needs it. Like it's getting to the point where like I really feel like it's life or death for my soul. And that I really need to focus on that. Even if it's like a 1-year relationship, with the knowledge of what a relationship is now, I think I can get my soul over that hump.
Good for you. I think that's awesome and amazing. And I feel like your garden is flourishing. I feel like you have self-made fertilizer. And I feel like you are a shining example to the world on if you plant it and you nurture it, it will grow. So, on that note, I want to say thank you so much. This was a fabulous experience. You are a beautiful flower, and I'm honored to have you in my garden today.
Oh, shucks.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Alicia. It's been wonderful to be here. Thank you for letting me share. I hope all of you out there, thank you for receiving, I hope, the message and the inspiration. And I hope they all continue to watch your podcasts because
Thank you, Peter.
I love the landscape analogy. It's actually one of the most beautiful analogies for life I've ever heard.
Thank you.
I shouldn't even say one of the most. I think, no, and I shouldn't even say I think. It's the most beautiful analogy for life I've ever heard.
Thank you, Peter.
There it is, on record.
And we got it there, folks. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia.
How'd we do?
Good.
Did we miss anything? Should we go back to something?
Actually, one thing I think could be interesting is I know the show's about your guests and not you, but it would be interesting just to hear you reflect a tiny bit on your spiritual experience.
Okay.
So I'll kind of start by saying, you know, so that's where I stand spiritually, but because we know each other from that spiritual background, I would love to know your feelings on that.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. I am a believer that you give, you get. So I also feel like from the beginning of my time, I was kind of put on the planet to be of service. And when I became a landscape designer, I was doing it because I realized that no matter how horrible life can be, when you surround yourself with beauty and nature, life just takes a whole different kind of turn.
Mm.
And in the worst situations, you know, this could have been like a whole different situation with your story right here. And I'm sure there's many paraplegics or quadriplegics that give up.
Unfortunately, in the early days, I but went through 3 suicides. Like I didn't see them do it, but
Three friends.
friends in rehab committed suicide.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it takes a really big vessel to want to fight this. You know, it's literally like a shade plant trying to make it in sunshine. They can, you know, it might have to get wilty for a little while and crusty and whatever, but it can come back to life. And I feel like I've definitely had my share of wilting times, for sure. And for some reason, with some fabulous connection divinely, I realized I have lots of living to do. I too want to be of service. My soul seeks a higher level as well. I want to transform every single day. Even on a shit day, I still look for something that I know is going to be okay or that it wasn't that bad. I try never to let the whole day go with me being in a bad mood or me being, you know, I can kind of correct that in a little way. Even if it's not like a happiest day of the life, I'm still okay with it. So I feel like spirituality, surrounding myself with spiritual people and friends that see a big picture like I do, that's where it is. And that's where I want to talk about. And those are the things that I want to talk about. And that's where I will continue to talk.
And can you share with us, do you have a morning ritual or a daily spiritual ritual?
I do. I wake up every single morning at about 4 a.m. I know.
Perfect time for spirituality.
I do. And I, too, do a prayer called the Ana B'Koach every single day. It just says, thank you so much for bringing me back here. And I meditate every single day. And I scan the Zohar every single day. And I journal every morning.
Wow.
And that takes me till about 6 o'clock. And then I beg my dog to wake up, drag his ass out the door. And I'm usually gone for work by 6:45. And I've already had like an entire day before I even start. But I tell you, if I don't do those days, everything's off. Like I have learned that without my rituals, it's just not the same.
And meditating is a broad concept that I have not come close to being able to wrap my brain around meditating as much as I want to. I've got Kabbalistic meditations I can do. I've got the Calm app, the Headspace app, and nothing has worked for me. But I know that people are always curious of what meditating is. So what is your meditation in the morning?
So I don't do Kabbalistic meditation. What I do and how I started, which was about like 7 or 8 years ago, I put the headphones on. And there's like a few different people I listen to. It started with Deepak, actually. Sure. Now I don't listen to him anymore. But I put the headphones on. And I started with 5 minutes. Most days I'm at 25 minutes. And I still do. I put something on in my ear. I do guided meditation. And I just listen. I just listen and I go as far away as I possibly can through breathing. And it took me a while too, because I definitely, if I even think of a shiny object, I'm like there. So, but that is one place that I seem to be able to keep myself. It took me a while, but I do it every day and I don't miss a day. And if I do, I will come home in the middle of the day and do it. Because I feel like I'm kind of naked if I don't do that.
Interesting.
And it's totally helped my life. And I tell anybody that I can, you know, you got to do it. But I do know another spiritual thing that I like to hold on to. And it's the saying that says, let it begin with me. So I know that if I'm on the right path, then I will be able to be out there on the right path.
Exude that energy
And come from a place of like, okay, I've middled myself. I'm okay now. So I tried to do that for myself and for others.
And I shouldn't say that I haven't mastered meditation all the way, because actually I have, in my striving to do it, there's a big park behind my house that has like a 1.5 mile track around the whole park. And that is a time that I'll put on headphones
and roll around there?
And roll around while listening to a meditation. And even though it's not the morning and it's not, there's activity all around me, it's meditative for me.
Oh, I'm working in the garden. There could be a whole crew behind me and I still could be meditating. So I feel like that's an inside job anyway, you know, whatever it looks like. It doesn't necessarily mean you got to go sit on a mat somewhere, you know. It just means you get quiet. anytime I get quiet, it's a thing for me. It's a big thing for me.
And you don't have to include this in the final edit. This is my last question for you. You did mention that you have go-tos that you listen to for meditation. I'm curious, for my own knowledge, who do you listen to?
I listen to this group called the Mindful Movement. It's fantastic. I listen to them a lot.
Do they have
it's a woman. Yeah, she has her own
Is it an
thing.
Audible podcast?
It is.
Okay.
It's on YouTube. It's on anywhere.
Oh, it's visual as well?
Yes. Yeah, I don't know. It's not visual, but it's on YouTube. So they do that. So I listen to her a lot from the Mindful Movement. And I listen to do you know what Ho'oponopono is? Do you know that? Oh,
No.
I'm going to turn you on to that.
Is that a Hawaiian pork dish?
It is. It's a Hawaiian.
Oh, I thought it was a Hawaiian pork dish.
No.
But it is Hawaiian?
There might be Hawaiian pork dish, but that is not. But it is Hawaiian.
Okay.
And it was this guy that he ran a prison or something. And he started saying, I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, thank you, over and over. And he saw the people in the prison getting healthy. And he wasn't even with them. And so it's this thing, which I will turn you on to. It's fabulously lovely. And it's just this repeat of, I'm sorry, thank you, I love you, please forgive me. Oh, you say it to yourself, you say it to everybody else, you say it to people, in your brain. But it's a really good one and I like it a lot. Wow. But I do my best meditations outdoor anyway and in nature. I'm a garden girl. I love my inner gardener and my outer gardener. So I do it for work and I do it for life. Landscape for life.
Alicia, thanks for having me on your show.
Thanks for being here, Peter.